That was probably, we were talking about highlights earlier, and that would be one of the highlights of my life, is playing those 2 years with Canada's national team. As a young 18-year-old, and under the guidance of such good people, Jackie McLeod and Father Bauer, and go to school, and the teammates I had, like they were just, they were mature, they taught you the right things, and it was something that I won't ever forget. When I went to Stockholm for the World Championships in March in '69, that was something. But my very first trip to Europe with these guys, away we went, and we landed somewhere, and we didn't know who we were playing. Like I was new to this experience, and I remember asking Teddy Hargraves. I said, "Well, who are we playing?" Well, he said, "We landed in Finland. We're going to play the Finns, and then tomorrow we're going to go to Sweden and we'll play the Swedes." And I felt so naive, or so, I forget, I don't know what the word is, but I was embarrassed to think that I wasn't worldly enough to know what we were doing over there. But I got to go to Russia, Czechoslovakia, and it was, like I said earlier, it's something that I'd never forget. We had, that was the experience that I won't forget. We played in one in Switzerland, and it had glass boards, and the plexiglass boards, you could see through them, and our bench was about 6 feet farther back from the boards, and in front of our bench was flooded also, so that if you hadn't played much and you were going to get a shift, you got to warm up in front of your own bench before you got to go on the ice. The rinks were so big, and some of them were half indoors, half outdoors, and of course the ice surface was huge, and I enjoyed that because I love to skate, and the more room you give me to do that, the more fun I'm going to have. Well, like I said, Stockholm was a wonderful, wonderful place to be. We of course were in Switzerland, but for uniqueness and just wide-eyed wondering what the heck is this. When we went to Russia, of course, you can think in the late '60s what that would still be like. It was the way the people lived, and the countryside and the architecture. It just shook your head because I hadn't seen any of that in Grosse Isle. And of course, we were in Finland just shortly after. Well, they hadn't been an independent country very long. And Czechoslovakia, we were there right after the occupation, and so we got to see a lot of different things that you wouldn't have seen if you didn't leave Grosse Isle. I think no differently than they do today. I really, you play jokes on each other. You, of course, go out. Probably more what we did then than they do now is probably as a group we did so many things together. We would go out for dinner together. We'd go shopping. If we were on the road, we'd all go out together. That is something that really appealed to me, and in all the teams I played for back then, was that we did so many things as a team. We would eat our pregame meal together. We'd all go to the same banquet hall to do that, and I enjoyed that, and I think that would be one of the things that I remember the most, is that we did so many things together. We were playing the Russians, and nobody would believe us that they were that good. And until 1972, and then all of a sudden, they started thinking back and saying, "My God, those fellas that played on Canada's national team weren't that bad of hockey players if they competed well with these fellas." And I do remember, like I was an 18-year-old and not fully developed yet, but I remember the strength that the Russians and the Czechs possessed, and that impressed me the most. And I could just see myself saying, I said to myself, I said, my God, how am I ever going to get that strong? Because they, at that time, were so well developed physically and in their training. And that's something that I felt that we lacked and needed to improve, and I think we have. And of course, they've taught us to do that. A Russian defenseman, Alexander Ragulin, he was just a mountain of a man. And our smallest hockey player, Billy Heindel, a Winnipegger, took a run at Alexander at Ragulin and hit him with everything he had, and all that happened was that Ragulin's helmet turned a little off a center, and Billy came limping to the bench, and he wouldn't do that again. Yes, and Fedosov, I believe that Fedosov was a player. I wish I had done my homework and remembered more of these fellas. Of course, tell me the goalie's name. Yes, Vladislav Tretiak was stopping pucks for them. Nedomansky was playing for Czechoslovakia. Hexy Rioranta, who was a Winnipeg Jet defenseman, was playing for Finland. Schoberg. And generally, all of the real good hockey players that we played against with Canada's national team eventually made their way to the NHL. They were mature, students by that time, but the cream of the crop ended up trickling over here.